Welcome back to the StodCast. We are on episode 4, which will be our State of the Schools presentation. This State of the Schools presentation was given live at the October 13th board meeting, and we're going to give you an update on everything that you may have missed if you didn't make it to that board meeting. Welcome to the Berkshire Local Schools, where our mission is to encourage, inspire, and prepare. All right, we're going to jump right into the State of Schools presentation. This is a little bit of a lengthy presentation, but we did think it's a good idea to give you an update on where we sit as a school. So as we talk about the State of Schools, I'm going to give you a quick executive summary of the things you're going to hear about during this presentation. We will discuss our strategic plan. In that strategic plan, we'll review what our mission, our vision, and our areas of focus are. We'll also review the goals that we set last year that we were working through that school year to achieve, and then we'll review how we did based on those goals. After we talk about the strategic plan and go through the goals, then we'll give a quick financial overview of the district. We'll follow that by some enrollment trends, give you some program and initiative updates, and then end with a conclusion of the State of Schools presentation. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our strategic plan. We explained last year, and last year's State of Schools meeting was all about the strategic plan. 2 years ago, we had a group of about 35 to 40 staff, community, local business people, grandparents who all participated in developing what they wanted the future of Berkshire schools to look like. So we developed our strategic plan. With that strategic plan, we came up with a set of core values. And our core values were character and integrity, community relationships, career readiness, trust, excellence, respect, and accountability. We also talked about areas of focus. We landed on 6 areas of focus that we thought would be important for our school district. 1 was strong academic excellence. Number 2 was involving the community and families in more events that bring them into the school. Number 3 was inter-school relationships and having greater interconnectedness between elementary, middle, and high school. Number 4 was communication with non-family stakeholders. 5 was alumni relations and relationship building and maintaining. And number 6 was to emphasize meritocracy for our students. We want them to want to be the best they can be and strive to be the best they can be. Our mission, the Berkshire Local Schools, exists to encourage lifelong learning, inspire students' highest achievement, and prepare critical thinkers who embody leadership, character, and citizenship. In short, we want to encourage, inspire, and prepare. And our vision was that we would become the premier school district, universally recognized for dynamic student-centered learning, innovative pathways for future readiness, risk-taking, collaborative partnerships, and the accomplishments which enable our children to thrive in the world. So our mission, why we exist, our vision, what we hope to be, those were defined in that last strategic planning session. Our goals for this year, goal 1 was that we would improve our academic performance by 10% by the end of the school year. Goal 2 was to establish and monitor cross-grade level collaboration so that we could ensure that we were building that interconnectedness. And goal 3 was to improve communications and strengthen the relationship with alumni, family, and non-school community members so that everyone outside and inside the school understood what was happening here. So if we talk about goal 1, student achievement, typically when we look at student achievement, most people jump right to the Ohio State report card. So what we know here is our students are more than just test scores. And so we're not going to spend a lot of time on the report card and the test scores. We will spend some time because it is important that we look at some things, and there are a lot of really good improvements that we've made. There are also some areas that we need to give some more intense focus to, which we'll go through with this presentation. A quick overview of the report card is all report cards, all schools, school districts, and individual school buildings in Ohio get a report card rating. It's 1-star to 5-star rating, with 3 stars being they met all state standards, 5 stars being they greatly surpassed all state standards, and 1 star meaning they need significant improvement to get up to meeting state standards. Now, the way that report card is put together is there's an achievement component, which is all the state testing that we have. That makes up 25% of the state report card. Graduation rate makes up 12.5%. Early literacy makes up 12.5%. Gap closing, which is how your students performed last year, did they close the gap on their peers? That makes up 12.5%. College, career, workforce, and military readiness makes up 12.5%. And then progress, are our kids making adequate progress toward grade level goals, makes up another 25% of the report card. So those things all go into play into how you get your overall rating between 1 and 5 stars. So like I said before, 3 stars means that you meet state standards, and then we have half-star increments. So 3.5 stars, you're still meeting state standards. At 4 stars, you're exceeding those state standards. Climbing into 4.5 stars, still exceeding, and then 5 stars would be significantly exceeding state standards. If you're below 3 stars, 2.5 stars would mean you need support to meet those standards. 2 stars, still needing support. 1.5 stars, you need significant support. And then 1 star, you need significant support to meet state standards. So that's how we rate. So a 3-star district is meeting all the state standards. They're doing exactly what the state expects them to do with their kids. That being said, let's take a look at last year's report card for Berkshire Local Schools. Last year, the district overall earned a 4-star rating on the report card. And if we look at the 6 individual components, we earned 3 stars in achievement, which meets state standards. We earned 3 stars in progress, meets state standards. We earned 4 stars in gap closing, so we were closing that gap for those learners exceeding the state standards. We earned 4 stars last year in graduation rate. We earned 3 stars in early literacy, and then the college, career, workforce, and military readiness was collected but was not actually rated last year. So we'll fast forward to this year's report card. And for the 24-25 report card, Berkshire is once again as a district rated as a 4-star district, which means exceeds state standards. In the achievement component, we held consistent. We were 3 stars this year, 3 stars last year. Progress, we were 3 stars, just like we were last year. In gap closing, we held consistent, 4 stars, just like last year. Graduation, we moved to a 5-star district. So we made significant increases in our graduation rate. So now we're at significantly exceeding the state standards in graduation rate. In early literacy, we actually took a step backward from 3 stars to 2 stars to need support. And I'll get into the reason for that and what we're doing to address that really in a detailed way in just a second. And then this is the first year that college, career, workforce, and military readiness is actually rated, and Berkshire jumps right off the charts at a 5-star rating, one of only 84 districts throughout the state to achieve that rating. Actually, that rating is specifically for high schools as well. It's one of 84 high schools. There's 604 school districts in Ohio. There's 779 high schools, I believe. So that puts us in elite company in terms of the college, career, workforce, and military readiness standard. So if we look at goal 1 in terms of student achievement, the elementary school is going to become an area of a focus for us in this goal because we saw in the early literacy rating, we were rated 2 stars on the current state report card. So if we look at that, part of the reason for that is in the 23-24 school year, we had the science of reading implementation. So we had to shift curricular materials because everyone was required to select materials that met the state. The state put out a list of all approved science of reading materials. So we had to adopt new materials because what we were using was not on that list. And when we adopted those new materials, it caused a diagnostic testing change. So we had one diagnostic to measure in our old materials. We had to move to a new diagnostic. With that change in diagnostic, what we didn't realize was that at the beginning of the 23-24 school year, we were using our old diagnostic, and then at the beginning of 24-25 school year, we were using the new diagnostic. So it's really not an apples to apples comparison. That's why the 2-star rating it is what it is, and we're going to fix it, but it's not as dire as it seems on paper. Because when I show you the difference between our new diagnostics, it looks a little bit better. The other thing is it was a new process for teachers and students. It created new sequences for learning. So where the foundational skills started in the old materials was a little bit different order in the new materials. That created some gaps in instruction. So for some of our first and second graders who didn't start with the new core materials, they were some things that they missed. We didn't realize that those gaps were there until the beginning of the 24-25 school year when we had that second diagnostic. And it was at that point we implemented at the elementary school a strategies for success time to address those things, where teachers could specifically target those deficiency areas and kind of build those skills back up for the kids. So if we take a look at our current fourth graders, when they were in second grade is when the new curricular materials started. And coming into second grade, 39% of those kids were reading below grade level. So they didn't miss a lot of the foundational skills because in second grade, those foundational skills are really taught in kindergarten and first grade. So they saw some gains to the 24-25 school year. So what the early literacy indicator is looking at is gains from the end of the 23-24 school year to the beginning of the 24-25 school year. So that's what that measure is indicating. So while we knew those gaps were there and we knew that some of those gaps were created by the diagnostic, there's nothing we can do to address that. Everything we did last year to address that won't be reflected on this year's report card. It will be reflected on next year's report card because those results are a year in arrears. But I have a graphic on the screen that shows that from their first year in grade 2 to grade 3, they dropped to 31%. And then at the beginning of this year, early September, we took the new diagnostic. They're at 29%. So we're decreasing the amount of students that are reading below grade level. Again, we want to eliminate the number of students below grade level, but a little bit of progress is what we're looking for. So if we look at current third graders, they started in first grade with the new curricular materials. So we noticed big gaps at the beginning of the second year. So in first grade, the old diagnostic we used showed 29% of them reading below grade level. In second grade, that new diagnostic showed 34%. You might think right away, well, what happened in that first grade year? But really, the skills were taught in a different order, and it was a different diagnostic. So we really started to dig into what skills were they missing, and how could we address those during strategies for success time. And then if you notice the beginning of this school year, that 34% dropped to 22%. And then last school year, 20% of those kids were high above grade level, and this year in the early diagnostic, 36% of those kids. So the things that we saw and the things that we targeted are working. Again, you won't see the results of that until next year's report card. If we look at our current second graders, they were in kindergarten when the new materials came in, so they didn't really see any dips. When they came in as kindergartners, 48% of them were reading below grade level. Last year, we targeted them. That dropped to 33%. This year, it dropped to 27%. Our goal is by the time they finish third grade, that they're all at grade level. And if you look at this year's current first graders, when they came into kindergarten, 52% of them were below grade level. They have had the benefit of having all the core foundational skills and all the strategies for success time. So this year, when they came back as first graders, only 18% of them were reading below grade level. So huge, massive improvements there, which gives us hope for the future that what we're doing is the right thing. So this year, our current kindergartners are coming in at 37% below grade level. Again, that's a diagnostic when they walk in the door, so we haven't had any chance to instruct them yet. But if we attack that the way we attacked last year's and decrease that, then we're well on our way. So the takeaways to this are our interventions are working. We're seeing improvements in that early literacy area. Those positive gains will be reflected on next year's state report card and will continue to grow from there. If we take a look at Berkshire Middle School, since we spent a lot of time on the elementary school because that was a big area of focus. But Berkshire Middle School overall was rated 3.5 stars. And they met state standards in gap closing, they met state standards in progress, and they met state standards in achievement. And as we know from the earlier description, 3.5 stars is still met state standards, but it's a little bit above. It's not quite to 4, which would be exceeding state standards, but it is above, and they're doing a lot of great things. And I'll highlight a lot of great things from middle school when we get into the program section. We look at the high school. The high school really led the day for the district on last year's report card. They were 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is significant improvement over the previous year when they were 3.5 stars. Berkshire High School is placed in the top 22% of schools statewide with that 4.5 star rating. Berkshire High School was awarded 5 stars for college, career, workforce, and military readiness component, one of only 86 high schools across the state to achieve this ranking. And they improved on several components from the previous year's report card, including the graduation rate, which increased from 4 to 5 stars, progress, which increased from 3 to 4 stars, and then their performance index score is an 81.3, which is an improvement from last year's 77 and the year before's 75. So things are looking very bright for the high school. Since we mentioned performance index, I want to bring up the district-wide performance index, because the performance index is the culmination of all tests, all state tests taken by all students in the district. And if you look at our results from 2021 through 2025, we have seen consistent and steady growth every year. Now, it's not that growth is not shooting up like a rocket, but it is improving every year, which means what we're doing is moving us in the right direction. We're seeing a good, positive, strong trend upward. So the takeaway for goal 1 for student achievement, we want to continue to aspire for a 10% increase in achievement from the previous year in all areas. Last year, in some of the areas, we hit 10%, and some we exceeded 10%, and in some of the areas, we had a slide back, so we have to really focus. But we want to, again, shoot for another increase of 10% in those areas. If we look at goal 2 for the district, it was to establish and monitor those cross-grade level collaborations. I want to just highlight some things really quickly that you'll see on some slides and I'll talk about. We have several cross-grade level collaborations. We have a wax museum, which you see some pictures of here. It's where 6th graders come down to the elementary school. They pick a historical figure. They try to dress like that historical figure, and then they do a presentation to our 1st graders about that historical figure. So we've got 6th graders teaching 1st graders about someone that they have learned about during the school year. We also have our Berkshire High School speech classes who come down to the kindergarten and 1st grade classes, and they read to the kids. So they'll be in the classroom with those kids, reading children's lit, practicing their public speaking while they get to work with our kids. The kindergarten and 1st graders really look forward to it, and it's a fun time for the high school students as well. We have several district-wide parades where our elementary school students march through all wings of the building. We have one for St. Patrick's Day. We have some holiday parades. We have an Earth Day parade. And then they get to march through the wings, and the middle and high school students will sometimes lead the parades for them and sometimes stand out in the hallway and clap for them as they move through the building on their parades. We have some district-wide makerspace projects. You can see some images on the screen about some of those things, whether they be murals that they're put up at the schools, or we had some kids who created the signs for the hurdles and track. We had some chemistry classes who did a holiday element. They created an ornament for the Christmas tree based on an element from the periodic table. We had murals that middle schoolers made that were hung in the hallways. Some kids redesigned, they stripped and stained a conference table for one of the conference rooms, and they do a lot of work on Chromebooks and things for the district. So lots of different district-wide makerspace projects that are incorporating all grades K through 12. Then we also have a lot of cool traditions that we started, and there's a screen up now where you can see pictures of a lot of those different traditions, and I'll just talk about a few of those things. One really cool one, as the kindergarten students, they plant a tree every year. So they have a class tree that's planted. We started that with the first year we moved in this building. The goal will be when those students graduate, they can go take a picture in front of the tree that they planted, and those trees are planted out by the playground. We also have a 4th grade leadership lap that signifies the end of their time in elementary school, the beginning of middle school. We have an 8th grade clap out day to symbolize their end of 8th grade and move into 9th grade. We have clap outs for our athletes that are going to statewide competitions. We had a clap out last year for retired teachers that were retiring. And then we have our senior toga day, and the students love to stand out in the hallways and watch the students do their lap in their togas. And of course, the culmination is our high school graduates in their caps and gowns, parading through the hallways for all the students out in the hallways to clap them out on one of their last days of school here. We have several district-wide give-back projects from food drives. You can see a picture of Mr. Katurba being taped to the wall in the gym because that student, the students got to put a piece of tape on Mr. Katurba to hold him up for things that they donated. We have an End 48 Hours of Hunger project that our Badger Lab students do, where they discreetly put enough food in the lockers of students who are in need to get them through the weekend so that they don't have to go through the weekend hungry. They put that in the locker so that no one has to be embarrassed by being given that. They just go to their locker. It happens to be in there. They go home with it. Our admin team, we helped prepare and package meals for Thanksgiving for several families. And then we have students who work in the Shire Shack, which is a consignment clothing shopping situation where, at no charge, families can come in and get clothing if they need it. We sent letters to troops where you can see a picture of the troops kind of showing the letters they got. They were happy to get those. And we did a jingle shop where some of our students made Jingle Bell shop where they made things that they could sell back at retail. So our goal for this year would be to continue to support those many cross-grade level collaborations and look to add more whole school collaborations as we can. Goal 3 was to improve communications and then strengthen those relationships and make sure that those non-parent community groups understood what we were doing. Some of the ways that we consistently communicate with our families, there's a superintendent's newsletter. There are principals' newsletters. We use email. We use pre-recorded phone calls. We use Dojo at the elementary school, Remind at the middle school. We use social media at all levels, and we use a website at all levels. And that does a good job of getting information to the families who are registered in our district. But we also needed to find ways to communicate with the families who are not registered in our district or the community members who aren't registered in our district. One big way is the StodCast, what you're watching now. So this is a way we can get the message to people who may not get all of our normal stuff, but may find this on YouTube or tune in to get updates about the school. This year, we've also recently started adding our communications to the good news because we know that every household in Geauga County gets the good news for free. So now everyone in Geauga once a month will get an update from Berkshire Schools with a nice, colorful graphic showing them some of the highlights for that month for Berkshire local schools. So the goal was for us to look for innovative ways to communicate with our families. I feel like we've done that. Now what we want to do is continue to use those means to communicate and then potentially find some more innovative ways to communicate with our families. So with the strategic plan update out of the way, what I'd like to do now is give you a quick financial overview. In the overview at the beginning, the executive summary I gave, I said we would do our strategic plan, a financial overview, an enrollment overview, programs and initiatives update, and then a conclusion. So now we're at the financial overview section. We'll talk a little bit about the 5-year forecast. So in a whole, we have about a $23 million budget. And so we do the best we can. Our treasurer is really good at what she does, and she does the best she can to estimate what our revenues and our expenditures will be, not only for this year, and then we'll have actuals by the end of the year, but she projects that out 5 years to see if we're going to be on track or what adjustments we have to make. So this year, we were within $84,629 on a $23 million budget, which is very good. And one of the reasons why we were over was because we offered a buyout, which will help us financially, because more veteran teachers who were at the higher end of the salary schedule retired based on the buyout. We brought in younger, newer teachers who are on the lower end of the salary schedule. That will pay off down the line for us, but right away we had to pay out those salaries, so that's where the $84,000 difference came. If we look at our revenues, we had slightly lower revenues than we anticipated for this year, but we are looking at potentially some increases in revenues over the next 4 years based on a 1% growth on income tax, some outside tuition growth. We have brought a lot of programs in-house, which cost us more to run, but then we spend less on purchase services of sending kids out, and we can accept kids from other districts into those programs at tuition rates for their district. The other thing is we assume real estate will increase. We're assuming a 12% increase. I know that a couple years ago we were seeing 27s and above that. So we try to stay kind of in the middle. And then as long as the state funding formula stays constant, we've been put on a guarantee, which means when our enrollment goes up, we really don't get any extra money because we're put on a guarantee, but that guarantee will help us to not get less state funding than we got before. If we look at where our funding comes from, about 68% of our funding comes from local sources. That would be property taxes, income tax, and then other local sources. Other local sources could be grants or revenues, donations, things like that. And then about 32% comes from the state. One interesting thing is that there's a lot of exempt property in our district. There's 6,000 acres that's owned by the city of Akron, which makes it tax exempt. That's $9.7 million worth of assessed value that don't go to the local agencies, schools, townships, the county, because that's tax exempt. And then the Geauga Park District owns 3,000 acres, which is assessed at about $3.8 million. So a lot of property in the district that does not get taxed. But again, 68% of our revenue come from local sources, and then 32% from the state. So what we would really like to see is the state providing more of that share so that the locals don't have to provide as much. When people are worried that their property taxes are increasing or what they're paying in taxes is increasing, and they think that schools are bringing in more money because of that. The issue is the schools are bringing in the same or less money, but the state is giving less of a share to that. So you do see more of your property taxes go out to schools, but it's not because the schools are getting more, it's because the state is sending less. And to make up for that, it comes from local. Not a situation we set up, not something we think is ideal, but I do think it's important to note that we get the same or less each year, even when local property taxes go up. If we look at our expenditures over the 5-year forecast, we have been working on decreasing those. This year, they're increased a little bit. We added an administrator and some aides for a new program that we started, but we will see that cost drop on the purchase services side. So while salaries and benefits for those positions will go up, purchase services will decrease in an amount that's greater than that. So overall, we'll see a savings where it may not look like a savings right away. If you look at in terms of where our money is spent, 49% of our budget goes to salaries, 16% goes to benefits, 22% goes to purchase services, and then 13% goes to other things like utilities, gas, maintenance, and then we have very little what you would call discretionary funding. So that would be school building budgets, things like that. That's a very, very small part of that other 13%. So just a quick overview of where that is. Now, some things that are threats to our 5-year forecast. So the good and the bad news is that we are financially stable through at least 3 of the 5 years, and it's been pretty consistently that way for us for the past 9 to 10 years. We just look in the actual year at where we need to make adjustments. We make those adjustments, and we stay in the black. But there are some House bills, some state budget items, and some legislation that could drastically change that 5-year forecast. We don't know if those things will pass. We don't know what will happen. If they do, then we'll have to take other steps. But as of right now, our financial picture, at least for the next 3 years, as is pretty solid. And then we'll work on those last 2 years as we get to them, and continue to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible and that we're financially stable so we can continue to run our programs. I'll give you a quick enrollment overview for the district. So from 2020-21 to now, I have a graphic on the screen where you can see we have a steady line trending upward. We did see a spike in the 22-23 school year where we dropped back down, and the reason for that drop back down is that's where the state changed the open enrollment funding. We used to be funded very similar to the way private schools are funded for vouchers. We would be funded for open enrollment. I'm not sure why they made that change, because if the voucher is all about parent choice, but you don't allow parents to have that choice if they choose a public school, that doesn't really seem like parent choice to me. So if the state made one simple change where they said every open enroll student would get voucher funding like they do if they go to a private school, Berkshire's funding issues would be solved. So write your congressman, write your senator, write your state legislator, your representative, and say, hey, just give public schools the voucher the way you give private schools for open enroll, and then that would be taken care of. And then we wouldn't have to worry about local property taxes being increased. But you can see we have a consistent, steady increase in enrollment. In terms of open enrollment, it was highest in the years, in the school year 2021, and then it was in that area where open enroll stopped being incentivized by districts. So we started to become selective about the numbers that we accepted. But then over the past 2 school years, as we moved into this new building and we had more room, we've accepted a few more students. So this school year, 25-26, we have 234 students who are open enrolled to us from other districts. So if the state funded those the way they fund vouchers, that would be a significant increase in funding for the district. So again, advocate for that for our district. We'll talk about programs and initiatives next. We have the Early Childhood Center, which we just opened right outside of our elementary school wing this year. We have 38 preschool students in that unit. We do have a few from other districts that pay tuition, and all of preschool is a tuition-based. We have 3 units. They're Buddies, the Explorers, and the Cubs, and they're placed in those units based on their specific needs, and they range from severe needs to relatively independent, and that's kind of how we place them in those different areas. And then we also have Badger Care, which is a before and after school care program that we run out of the Early Childhood Center. So if we have elementary and or middle school kids who they need to get here earlier or stay here later, they are dropped off early in the morning at the Early Childhood Center, And then after school, they're taken to the Early Childhood Center and they're picked up from there afterward. Here are some images on the screen of the Early Childhood Center. You can see some of the classrooms and then some of the staff working with the students there. So we're really proud of that space. Opened this year. It's a nice big space. The classrooms are much bigger than the rooms that they had down at the Kent State Burton campus. So it's a really good situation, and we're hoping that that just continues to increase with enrollment and becomes a revenue source for the district in the future. At Berkshire Elementary School, they are PBIS Gold rated, which is a very high bar and puts them on the elite levels in the state of positive behavior and supports. They use sources of strength to help kids learn coping skills, and they've implemented a strategies for success time where they can give students exactly what they need to make up for the skill deficits in the areas that they're in, or as we saw on some of that early literacy data, some of those students who are now achieving well above grade level, they can really work with a gifted specialist on how they're going to accelerate those kids in those programs now. At Berkshire Middle School, they were awarded PBIS Bronze. They also were awarded a Purple Star for supporting military families. And then they have several leadership and support programs for the middle school students. They also use sources of strength to help with coping skills. We have student council for students to get their voice out so that it can be heard. We have Ruling Our Experiences, or ROCKS, for the girls, which helps them to further do peer mediation and coping skills. And then we have Ambassadors of Compassion, which is similar to ROCKS, but for the boys, and helps them to learn how to work with each other, do some peer mediation, peer-to-peer support, things like that. Some clubs and activities that we have at Berkshire for our students. We have lots of athletic opportunities for the middle school: football, cross country, volleyball, soccer, cheerleading, basketball, wrestling, and track. And we also have academic and creative clubs. There's coding for girls, art club, STEAM club, robotics, math club, honor society, and jazz band. The middle school also employs a strategies for success time where they can also target exactly what students need and how to get them to grade level, and then how to accelerate those who are at or above grade level. If we look at Berkshire High School was also a PBIS Bronze designated school. We were one of very few districts in the state who have all of our buildings awarded a PBIS award, because even some districts who use PBIS don't use it to the level that they can get gold, silver, or bronze. And our high school has a lot of college credit and college readiness pathways. So we have College Credit Plus offerings at the high school, as well as advanced placement courses, which allow students to earn college credit. Here's a long list of the different advanced placement and College Credit Plus courses that we have offered. In addition to that, we have several workforce development pathways. We've been working on these for the past probably 3 to 4 years, and this is a big part of the reason that we were rated a 5 in that preparing students for their futures category of college, career, workforce, and military readiness. This year, we're kicking off a new manufacturing pathway where our students have mechanical technology, which is the evolution of our diesel program, and agribusiness and production systems, both which lead to internships and placements at local communities. We have advanced manufacturing courses, and we have a new Industry 4.0 course that will earn students a SACA credential, which is a smart automation credential. So it's the future of manufacturing. Berkshire High School was selected to participate in Battelle's Manufacturing Pathways pilot program. Only one of 10 high schools in the entire state, and the only high school in Northeast Ohio to be selected for this. So in addition to that, I don't have a graphic for this, but Berkshire was selected only one of 15 in all of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And again, the only in all of Northern Ohio, not just Northeast Ohio, to be selected by Ohio Machinery Company, who own Cat and Peterbilt, as a Tier 1 partner for workforce readiness with them as well. So lots of different things. So in conclusion, what you saw through this presentation was steady growth for us in terms of enrollment, in terms of academic scores, in terms of programs. We're sustaining those programs. It's not just adding a program and then abandoning it. We're really getting into the sustainability and making sure that those stick around. You're seeing continuous improvement while maybe not jumping, 20 and 30 points. We are continually moving forward, and you're seeing that we're fulfilling our mission and vision. That mission, which is to encourage, inspire, and prepare, and that is what's going to lead our Berkshire graduates to success. That's why you should be proud to be a part of Berkshire Local School District, and that's why it's a good day to be a Badger. So with that, that'll be the end of this StodCast about the State of the Schools presentation. Next month, we'll get really in depth into our makerspace options and probably bring in a couple of students to talk about what they do in the makerspace. And then in future StodCasts, we will talk about elementary specific, middle school specific, and high school specific programming and get more students. A lot of students want to be on the StodCast, so we have heard you, and we will get you into these meetings, and we'll get the community updated so that you learn all of the awesome. Is that my first awesome? I only had one. I'm like the Lego movie. Everything is awesome. But I only started that now because I thought about it. So with that, thank you for joining. Remember to like and subscribe so you can get the updates when they're loaded. And we will see you next time on the StodCast.